So we're carrying on with configuring Joe's network, and in this video we're going to configure DHCP. Now we're not going to bother configuring DHCP on all three of these routers because DHCP configuration from the command line is a little involved because it requires a little bit of planning. We're just going to configure it on the R&D router. I've got my Windows XP client here, and right now he has no valid IP address, or he does, but it's not valid for our network. And by the time we're done, we should be able to renew this IP address and get an actual address that's in our range. And if we look at our range here, it should be, let's go ahead and close that one. If we look in our range here for R&D, it should be 192.168.12.0/26. The first thing we'll do is we'll go out here to our R&D router and go back into config mode, and we're going to enable the DHCP service. Now, these are all the commands that were entered by that lovely Secure Device Manager application. We're going to do it from the command line just so we can see what is involved in setting it up, other than just clicking a few buttons in a GUI, because it's important to know this because you won't always have that GUI access, especially since that SDM, like I said, is a pain to get working right. So the first thing we'll do is we'll type service, and we're going to enable DHCP, enable DHCP server and relay agent. So I'll do service DHCP, and that enables all of the DHCP subcommands. So the next thing we're going to do is actually configure a DHCP pool, because all of the configuration is done inside the pool address, and then we're going to exclude certain addresses from that pool. So we're going to do IP DHCP, hit the question mark. Now we can say pool. So IP DHCP pool, and we're just going to give the pool a name. In this case, we'll call it R&D. So now we're in the DHCP configuration mode. If we hit question mark, here's all of the DHCP options that you can set for this particular pool. Obviously, the first thing we want to define is the network, because we have to tell it what network we're on. So if we look back on our notepad just to make sure, 192.168.12.0/26. So we'll do network 192.168.12.0/26. And I think you can do the /26. Yes, you have to put a space though. We're then going to configure a domain name. So we'll do domain name rnd.joe.net. And we're going to specify a DNS server. Even though we don't actually have one on our little lab network, we still want to define it just so we can verify that it's actually getting it. So we'll do 192.168.12.1. And the last thing we have to configure is the default router. In this case, it will be the same as the DNS, 192.168.12.1, because that's the router that this client has to use to get off the network. Now, the default lease is 1 day. We can specify a shorter lease if we'd like by doing lease and the number of days. Or you can say infinite, which again I wouldn't recommend, but there are some situations where you might want an infinite lease. Can't really think of any. So now that we've configured the pool, let's exit from this, and we're back out in config mode. So now we're going to set the exclusions. We want to assign all of the addresses between .10 and .60, because according to our document here, we have to support 50 workstations at the R&D location. So we're going to do IP DHCP, and we're going to use the exclude keyword here. So we'll do excluded address. What's the low address? So we'll do 192.168.12.1, and we're going to exclude all the way up to 192.168.12.9. And actually, just to be on the safe side, we'll say this is going to be .0, so it doesn't try to assign that .0 address. You never know, it might do something crazy. So we'll do that. So we've excluded the first 10 addresses. And we're also going to tell the router to exclude everything from 51 up to 192.168.12.63, which is the high end of the network. So now we should have DHCP configured and bound to our LAN address or LAN interface. So now let's go back out to the IP client here. We'll do IP config/renew. We'll verify that we get an address on the 192.168.12.0 network. And there it is. There's our DNS suffix, rnd.joe.net. We've got the .10 address, the correct subnet mask, and the correct default gateway. If we go back out here to R&D, we'll do show IP DHCP, and we'll do database. Actually, that's not the right command. need to do show IP DHCP pool. And there it is. There is the one leased address we have. So now let's verify that we can actually get off our network by pinging the loopback address up here on the HQ. So on HQ, we should be able to ping 192.168.13.1, or actually let's do 192.168.10.1. So we'll do ping 192.168.10.1. And we're getting replies back from that loopback interface up at the HQ, so we can go all the way to the loopback interface on the HQ router. So we've set up DHCP here on the R&D network, and we've verified that it works, so that's marked off our list. Let's carry on with our next configuration option in the next video.